Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Because I mean, if I go, "Hey, Luigi, how's your toilet bowl?" I don't think it has the same effect.
No, it does not.
No, but it goes back to what we said earlier. The art of the buyback, I think, creates a little bit of a, paying it forward, loyalty, and I think it hooks them to coming the next time.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matthew, there are few industries that have this luster and curiosity of entrepreneurs as the bar business. We all want to own a bar. We all want to go to a bar, but we don't understand the ins and outs of owning a bar. So today on the podcast, we have Chris Schneider. He is the bar business coach. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking with you guys and getting into the bar business a little bit.
Well, you come to this conversation with a plethora of life experience, and you're coaching about the bar business because you owned numerous bars in the past. If you can go back and teach the pre-bar owner, Chris Schneider, 3 things of what he should do that he didn't, what would those be?
The first one would be pay more attention to your data, right? Like I did a lot of things on gut instinct, and luckily I have a really good gut instinct. But I definitely could have been more successful by just paying attention to my data and following the numbers where they would take me to make more money. The second thing I would tell myself is to not work as much. Right? I think the bar industry, it's real easy to get sucked into these 80, 90-hour weeks. Now, some of that's talking to people and having fun, but I spent a lot of my 20s sleeping until noon, waking up, going into a dark bar, and leaving at 5 in the morning. And I could have had some more fun had I not done that. The third thing I would have told myself is that nothing is that serious, right? Like it's just, it's a real easy industry to get sucked in, especially when you're working those really long hours, and to just stress and beat yourself up over the small stuff. Now, the small stuff in the industry definitely does matter. A lot of times that's the difference between being successful and not being successful, but just constantly beating yourself up about it was not a smart play in my part.
From the outside looking in, if I were to see the 2 big pain points, I would assume 2 of those would be the fixed real estate costs, right? Because you need foot traffic. You want to be in an attractive area. That comes with high rent. And then you've got labor issues, right? Because you're always hiring and rehiring waiters and barbacks and bartenders and talented bartenders. So walk us through the balancing act of not only retaining your staff, but also finding a good space that allows you to have strong foot traffic.
So those are absolutely, your instincts are spot on. Those are 2 of the big problems that you run into. Now, when it comes to real estate, obviously, if you're in a great location in New York City, you are paying through the nose for that real estate. That is a given. But you also look at, there are some bars that are wildly successful that are in the middle of nowhere. And I think sometimes we conflate a great location and a really fancy cocktail bar with bottom line profit. Because I know folks that are doing lower volume in the middle of nowhere that are taking home great money and living a great life. And I know folks that have great locations and really well-known bars that are struggling a little bit. So location is definitely key. But the real question is, can you just pull the people in, right? Are there enough people in your area to support your concept, whatever that may be? And sometimes the flashier location comes with more stress and less profit at the end of the day. Now, labor, that is absolutely one of the hardest things in the industry. And the big thing, though, with labor, and I hear a lot from folks I talk to, they'll say, well, Gen Z is almost impossible. Right. And if you think about the bar industry, the restaurant industry, most of the folks we're getting are college kids. They're people right out of college. Right. You have the veterans that have been around a long time. But quite frankly, a lot of those guys in their 30s and 40s and 50s that have been doing this forever during COVID went, wait, why am I doing this? And they switched industries. They went to something else where they have better hours and, health insurance. So it's harder today because you have that younger group as your main labor base. But at the same time, if you build the culture for them properly, if you train them well, if you give them the right experience as a team member, that retention can be really high. You know, I mean, it's industry average turnover is about 70% on an annual basis. I know people running 5-10% turnover, and I've definitely come across folks running 300-400-500% turnover. And the difference there is almost always how they treat their employees, how they train them, and the systems they're putting in place to make sure their employees succeed.
On average, as a rule of thumb, what percentage of sales do you attribute to top shelf versus bottom shelf and tap and regular mocktail beverages?
So that's going to change largely based upon concept. In general, we're looking at, you know, for most bars in America, they're not fancy bars. They're those neighborhood bars. They're the guy that's been on that street corner for 50 years, and maybe the ownership's changed, but the bar really hasn't. And they're selling well drinks. They're selling Miller Lite. They're selling Coors Light, right? A lot of the attention gets on the, oh, we make the best margarita in the world, or come check out these fancy cocktails made by our mixologists. But the majority of the sales in the industry are still Jack and Coke, right? A Miller Lite in a bottle, a bucket of Budweiser. They're the simple stuff because, quite frankly, if you think about it, and I think this is probably true of a lot of people listening, if you're drinking and you go to a bar for a special occasion, yeah, you're getting that, you know, riff on an espresso martini. But if you're just drinking with some buddies after work, you're probably having a Miller Lite.
Yeah, I can see that. But also, if you're going to have one of those fancy drinks, you're going to have one. You have one. And then you go to what you eat, the tequila, rocks, Jack, rocks, right? Jack soda.
Mm-hmm.
You just go, because how many of those fancy drinks are you going to actually drink? They're sweet. They're just too much sometimes.
100%.
So speaking of concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
A while back, I was actually looking to open up a bar. This is, I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, but we never wound up doing it. But as I was looking and doing my homework into concepts, the Irish bar seemed to, from the research that I did, always be better, a better concept than most. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think some of that's bias in what people write.
Okay.
But if you really think about an Irish bar is kind of your generic neighborhood bar, just with some green on it and more Guinness being poured, right? It's that generic, make a community type place that tends to do the best.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at a local neighborhood bar, whether it's Irish or just, you know, dive bar, what you have is a group of people that you have as really, really good regulars. You know, I was in that space. I had people that I knew, hey, Jim's coming in. He buys a bucket of Budweiser every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys pay your light bill. They pay your water, right? They're covering your rent, just those kind of base expenses, because you know with regularity, this guy isn't going to miss a day unless he's on vacation or dying. And so it gives you that base. The other thing there that's really true is that it's approachable, right? If we think some of the best cocktail bars in the world, you have to make reservations. It's expensive. Not everybody can go. And especially now, like in the last year or so, where we've seen the economy tighten up a little bit, people don't want to necessarily go spend $18, $20, $25 on a cocktail. They will spend $12. And so when you're approachable, when you're neighborhood, when you're community-based, and the other thing about those bars, the range of people they're pulling in, it's like a 3-mile radius, right? So those are the same people that you see walking your dog down the street. They're the same people that your kids go to school with. They're the same people you're bumping into at the gas station and the grocery store. So it just becomes an extension of the community that works as kind of an outpost where everybody can mingle.
I like it. So what is the average cost of a cocktail these days throughout the country?
It's going to vary a lot, right? So just as an example, I have some clients in, say, San Francisco, New York. You're paying $18. You're paying $20, depending on what it is. I live in southern Indiana, in quite a rural area. I go to the bar I get a Tito's on the rocks at $6.
Okay.
They probably need to raise their prices. They're a little timid about that. I've told them they should charge me more. But, right, if you're rural Midwest, rural South, your prices are half of what they are in New York and San Francisco. And that's due to the real estate. That's also due to the labor, right? San Francisco minimum wage is like $18.50. Indiana tipped minimum wage is $2.13 still. So
Wow.
you have this huge range when it comes to labor cost and every other cost involved that influences those cocktail prices.
It's funny that you say that. I just got back from San Francisco. I was there last week, and not only are you absolutely 100% correct on the pricing, but there's also another fee that they add on. You got to pay like a 2% fee for insurance for the bar, for like the wait staff and the bartender. I've never seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into a fund for them. It was interesting. First time I saw that.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I think, compared to other industries, when you look at bars, because everything essentially becomes a percentage, right? If we're talking about how much should your liquor cost, your cost of goods sold be, it's in the 20s. How much should your labor cost be? It's 20s, 30s, right? We combine those in the industry. We call that prime cost. You're in that kind of 50 to 60 range for labor plus cost of goods sold. And if you're in California and all your expenses are higher, that's going to push all the prices higher, right? So it's just, it's an industry where it's so different state to state. And then you add on top of that, state liquor laws. So like in California, you cannot negotiate liquor prices with a supplier. In the Carolinas, you have to buy alcohol from the government. They're the only people that sell alcohol in the Carolinas. In Indiana, we have distributors, but only one distributor can sell a product. So like if I want to buy Bacardi, there's one guy that sells it. There's no competition. Now I can negotiate with him, but there's only one guy.
Yeah, a friend of mine, him and his father owned a Budweiser distributor in Staten Island. And they were the only people that could sell Budweiser to every single store in Staten Island.
Yeah.
I mean, that's talk about a monopoly, right?
Yeah, they got real lucky after the prohibition getting the right laws in place to help their businesses.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how important is the food component to a bar? Is it complementary to the beverage sales, or does it really move the revenue needle?
Normally, it does move the revenue needle. So to give you an example, my bar, it was in Indianapolis, at 86th Street Pub on the Northwest Side. And I bought it in 2011. In 2011, you could smoke in a bar. So I had a lot of smokers. I had a lot of those type of folks. They'd smoke, they'd drink a couple buckets of beer, they'd leave, and I was doing about 15% food. Well, in 2012, they said, well, now you can't smoke in bars anymore. And so all those smokers, I lost them. Because this was a Marion County thing, the county just north of me. I mean, like literally drive 5 minutes, you could go to a bar you could smoke in. So they all went over there. So then I had to bring in food way more. Food went from being 15% of my sales to about 40% of my sales. Now, one of the things that's interesting with food in bars, if you're a restaurant, you're worried about your food margins a lot. A lot of times in bars, we can worry about it less because I'm not really worried if I make money on the food. But I know if you come in and you eat, you're probably going to stay 30, 40, 50 minutes longer. So I'm getting 2 more drinks out of you. So in some way, the food really matters for the bottom line, not necessarily because it's the food, but because when I increase your dwell time, I sell you more drinks.
Now,
so didn't that start during the Great Depression, right? They started putting salty food on the bars. And that's where the peanuts came from. And they used to put salami out because you're eating the salami, you're eating the peanuts, you're getting the salty. Now you got to order a drink.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But really, if you think about food and drinking, this goes back as far as you can possibly think. This goes back to even like Rome, right? But the modern bar essentially comes out of like public houses and inns during the Middle Ages. And what they always had a pot of some stew that would probably kill us all today if we ate it, sitting on top of the fire. And so it was have some food, have some drink. Because it's really hard to separate the two. Plus, from just a liability standpoint, if you're going to sit and drink all day, I want to give you some food, right? Because you're going to leave, and I don't want you getting in trouble on your way home.
What's the
So
first thing that you look at when you walk into a bar to help them out, and the owner goes, we're always packed on Friday night, but we're broke Monday morning. Where's the first place you look?
So the first place I look at isn't inside the bar at all. It's parking.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily how much parking is there. It's what does this place feel like to walk up to, right? Is the parking lot well lit? Because when you look at men will go into almost any hovel of a bar and not care. But when it comes to women, things like parking lot lighting, how inviting the front is, make a huge difference. If you have, two bars in a neighborhood and one of them has great lighting and women feel safe walking in and the other one doesn't, well, the bar that the women go into is going to do a lot better. Something I say to a lot of my clients, if you can get women in, guys will come. But if you can get guys in, women will not necessarily come.
Ain't that the truth? So what's one misconception that you think bar owners, when you first start talking to them, they got to be told that you're thinking about something the wrong way? We got to think about this. There's got to be one commonality that they all believe this is the truth no matter what, but they're absolutely wrong.
I think the biggest one is that you can do all of this based on your gut, right? This is an industry when you really think about it, and you even just like food and restaurants in America, right? You have a lot of people, oh, well, so-and-so's grandfather came over here and opened this bar or opened this restaurant or opened this hot dog stand and made it big. And you just got to work hard and you got to get through it and you can think through everything. Well, guess what? In 1980, with the margins that existed, yeah, that was very true. Today, margins are tighter. There's more competition. There's more bars. There's more restaurants. And let's be honest, you can drink cheaper at home, right? If you just want to have a drink, you can learn how to make the cocktails. There are tons of cocktail books out there. So you can't do this all on gut. You have to be willing to dive into the numbers, dive into the data, and actually say, okay, where can I tweak things? Because when we're talking about a business that's made up of margins for the most part that are 5-10%, if you're not trying to figure out how to turn that 5% into 10%, you're never going to make more money than you are today.
That's so crazy though, because you go into a bar, you order a cocktail. Like I drink Casamigos Reposado, right? Yeah. They charge me $26 for one drink, and it's a $50 bottle in the liquor store, right?
Yeah.
So you would think the margins would be so much better than that.
You would, but if you have, on a cocktail like that, standard in the industry is probably about 18-20% as far as cost of goods sold is concerned.
Okay.
Then I'm going to add on to that 30-ish% for labor.
Okay.
Then I'm going to add on 10% for real estate. And that's assuming that you're not getting screwed, which a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to add on to that the marketing, the advertising, the printing of menus, managers, all this other stuff that has to go around. Accounting, legal, insurance. Something a lot of people don't think about in this industry, insurance. Insurance for a big bar in a place like Florida where the rates are high can be upwards of $100,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
Well, think about it. I mean, what other industry are you literally getting people drunk?
On purpose.
Your business model, right? You're making people irresponsible. So they go out and get in a crash. Guess what? If that drunk guy was in your bar, not you're the last bar they were in, but if he was in your bar at any point during the night, that person that got injured, their attorneys are coming after you. Now, hopefully, if you were not the last bar, you can get out of it. Your attorneys can deal with that. But they're still coming after you. If anything happens, and one of the big changes in the last few years that's driven up insurance rates in the industry has been battery. Like people get in fights and then sue the bar because the fight happened. And so because those claims have gone up, assault and battery insurance for bars has gone up. So it's a huge amount of just these stacked costs that while individually may not seem huge, some of them like insurance become surprising, and you end up with a margin that if you're not doing things right is negative for a lot of folks. And if you're doing everything perfectly, 15, 20% maybe.
And then combine that with seasonality, and maybe you've got some weather conditions, or who knows? Maybe you add an outdoor space for the summer months just to try to get that 10% versus the 5. Yeah, you're making the bar business sound extremely difficult.
I mean, it sounds fun on the surface.
It's the only industry, I think, where people are sitting in a business, having a good time. They go, how hard can this be? And then they buy the business. And it is deceptively simple.
Let's go back of the house. Try to lift the hood for us. If the three of us own a bar, right? We get there early in the morning. How many vendor relationships do we have, right? We've got to order the food from probably a purveyor, right? We have to buy the liquor through, you mentioned like the 3-tier system, right? So we have to buy the liquor from somewhere. What other vendors are we expecting deliveries from just to be able to open the doors at night?
So generally it's going to be food and beverage, right? I mean, those are your big ones. Now that can go from very simple, where you have one food vendor and a couple beverage vendors, depending upon what you're buying, to hideously complex. I mean, I don't know how many people that are listening realize, but like when it comes to food, there are a lot of vendors out there. And especially in big cities, you have people that focus on produce, people that focus on fruit, people that focus on specific meats. So if you get into the high end, the specialty side, you might be juggling just for a food menu, 5, 6, 10 different vendors for, this little piece and that little piece. On the beverage side, it all depends on the state and what you're buying, right? Like for Indiana, when I had my bars, we had 3 main liquor distributors and 2 main beer distributors. Then I worked with 2 other beer distributors to get better craft beer. So I was at 7, and that was just what I had to do to be open. Because again, when you have this 3-tier system where you're forced to buy from a certain person, right? I want this product. Oh, now I have a new vendor some of the time.
So you are on the Liquid Lunch Project podcast. So we should ask you, is happy hour still a thing? Is it profitable?
Depends on where you are. So it is generally still a thing. Yes, happy hour is still something people do. And I see a lot of folks that do really well in that like kind of 4 to 6 bracket, that after work bracket, on sales. Now, that doesn't mean that's working everywhere for everyone. And again, this kind of becomes a state-based issue, because what's legal for happy hour is going to change state to state.
Really?
I mean, I think the bar industry is one of the few industries where government actually tells you what specials you're allowed to do. So, in Florida, you can do a buy one, get one. In Indiana,
I've never heard of that before.
I'm sorry?
Unpack that a little bit. I've never heard of that before.
So it's you're just going to have different laws. And most of this stems from prohibition, post-prohibition. It tends to be worst in the Midwest and the South. A lot of states have loosened up. So like when I first got into the business in Indiana, we could not be open on election day before 6 p.m. It was illegal to sell alcohol on election day before 6 p.m. Because in the 20s, people had gone into the bars, rounded up people, taken them to the polls, and told them who to vote for. Right. And so this is some old mob crime thing that's 100 years old. They got rid of it.
I've seen that in the movies.
Yeah. But that was a real thing, and you just couldn't be open. In some states, you can't be open Christmas. You can't be open Easter for religious reasons. Depending on where you are, like Indiana used to have a law where happy hour was illegal. You could have a sale or a special, but it had to be all day. It could not be time bound. Well, now it can be time bound, but it can't be more than like 2 hours a day, and it can't equal more than 10 hours a week. There's like a whole list of requirements that you have to jump through in order to have happy hour.
We used to have it. There used to be a beat the clock we used to have. Every hour the drinks went up another 50 cents. So they started at 50 cents. Yeah, That was fun.
And so you can do things like that in New York, but in Indiana, you still can't and never could.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this. A lot of our audience, they don't own bars. They're not in the restaurant industry. But what could every small business owner learn from the bar business itself, even if they've never poured a drink before in their life?
So I think the number one thing that you can take from hospitality and send out to all small business is that guest experience. So when I think about a guest experience, I'm looking at the website, right? What happens before someone becomes your customer, right? Because if you're going out for dinner, you don't wait till Friday and then walk into a restaurant and decide where you're going. You're probably deciding Monday. You're talking to your wife. You're maybe talking to your friends about where you're going to go. So from that point forward, what does that experience look like? And then how do you provide great service in a way that's standardized and repeatable, right? And how do you give your service a little bit of wiggle room where it's standardized and repeatable, but I can go, hey, Luigi really likes this. I'm going to do this for him, but I don't do it for other people, but I need to give him this extra piece because now I'm going to make him hooked. He'll keep coming back over and over and over again because I figured out this little thing about him. And one of the tricks that I think is amazingly useful goes to the relationship building piece, which is something I tell all my clients to do, everybody I talk to, is that you need to train your team to know one thing about everyone. Because if I know you have a dog, or if I know your kids you're going to spring break in Arizona, or if I know just one little piece of information and I can ask you about it, I've formed a relationship that now shows that I care, that's going to hook you in, make you feel like you had a way better experience, and make you that repeat customer, make you want to come in and spend money with me all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. Me and Luigi were talking about this, not necessarily the bar business, but some of the restaurants you go to. When you walk into a restaurant and the owner comes up to you and says, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. He doesn't know your name, but he makes you feel comfortable. And he walks over to the table. Like they do that a lot in New York. There's a lot of, in Florida, not so much. They don't do that, but that it gives you that experience, right? It makes you want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, please. No, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's not necessarily easy to do if you're a plumber, but you can take pieces of that, right? Or especially if you're in like a service business, consulting, financial services, banking, anything like that. Yeah. You can play that exact same game, and it builds that emotional relationship you need to keep that person coming back to you and trusting you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Because I mean, if I go, hey, Luigi, how's your toilet bowl? I don't think it has the same effect.
No, it does not.
No, but it goes back to what we said earlier. The art of the buyback, I think, creates a little bit of a, paying it forward, loyalty, mm-hmm. and I think it hooks them to coming the next time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Chris, do you have any bar stories and bar businesses that are successful in the franchise space?
So I don't work with franchises, and that's just a thing of mine. I like the independent side because it's grittier and it's also more mobile. As soon as you get into a franchise space, right, you have either you're working with the franchisor, in which case you're writing a bunch of SOPs that now people have to get trained on and they may or may not follow, and then you're being just kind of a dick about enforcing them. Or you're working with the franchisee and there's no wiggle room. Right. So I work mostly or entirely with these small independents, 1, 2, 3 stores, maybe, because we can be gritty. We can try things. We can innovate quickly. And it's where I'm able to affect a lot of change and really have a lot of fun doing it.
For those crazy bastards out there that do want to open up a bar, can you tell them where they can find your 2 books focused on this space, please?
Sure. So got 2 books, How to Make Top Shelf Profits in the Bar Business and Menus That Sell. They are both available on Amazon. How to Make Top Shelf Profits in the Bar Business is a great one. It's 75 lessons that I took from when I owned a bar that I literally wrote down for myself just so I didn't forget what the heck I knew, and then turn that into a book. The Menus That Sell book is really just a tactical book on how to take menus from an idea through optimizing it and understanding the data on them.
Chris, can you also tell everybody where they can find you on the socials if anybody wants to?
Sure. So Bar Business Coach, pretty much across the board. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'm on all those places. And then I have the Bar Business Podcast, which is a great resource. We just got past 250 episodes.
Nice.
So a lot of different tactics, techniques, and things on there that people can try and learn from and develop on their own to help their bars and restaurants succeed.
Chris, thank you so much for being here. One question before I let you run.
Sure.
What is your drink of choice?
You know what? People ask me this, and I wish I had a better answer. I'm a Tito's on the rocks drinker.
Okay.
That'll do.
And that's because back in the day, I'd go to all these different bars, and not every bar was great. So I'm just like, okay, vodka in a glass. You can't screw that up. So I became a vodka in a glass drinker. And if I'm being really, really adventurous, I might put some lemonade in it. But I'm a pretty boring drinker.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Let's go!